United in one cause, they gathered in the streets and in the squares of the Belarusian capital, Minsk. Since the disputed presidential vote on August 9th, protesters have defied the authorities and have been gathering every day, calling for an end to President Lukashenko's 26-year rule. Despite the continued threats of a violent crackdown, opposition supporters say they won't give up. Ahead of Sunday's rally, the Belarus army rolled into the central city streets. A warning to those marching: any unrest near monuments and statues would not be tolerated. And they, not the police, would see to that. On Saturday, in the city of Grodno in the west, stood the man at the center of this wave of discontent. Alexander Lukashenko railed against the opposition's supporters and accused NATO of deliberately positioning its forces by the country's western border and ordered the army to defend its territory.
NATO forces are approaching. We understood this last year when they announced drills, but coronavirus has slowed them down a bit. Now the situation, from their point of view, has become unstable internally. They've switched to active operations. They've deployed all their troops. We can see this.
NATO has dismissed Lukashenko's accusations as baseless. Only a few days ago, strikes and protests had taken place here, but a heavy-handed response from the authorities provoked further outrage, along with threats of job losses if state employees, the president's traditional support base, go on strike again. For Belarus's opposition leader, SVETLANA TIKHANOVSKAYA, who's fled to neighbouring Lithuania, this is not a movement that is disappearing, and she's urged her supporters to keep up the momentum.
What I know is that Belarusian people don't want this president anymore, and it's our people's will, and authorities this year has to listen and has to hear what Belarusian people want.
This is a protest that has taken root across the country. Lukashenko may be clinging on to power by any means, rejecting any talk of voter fraud in his electoral win. But it is unlikely that he will be able to cultivate support for his leadership in a country where many say they have had enough of his leadership. Sonia, Gallego, Al Jazeera.
And we want to show you now some live pictures from neighboring Lithuania, where a human chain is being organized from the capital Vilnius to the Belarusian border in support of the anti-government demonstrations in Belarus. Among those expected to participate are the Belarusian opposition leader Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, who sought exile in Lithuania, saying she fears for her safety in Belarus. Lithuania's President Gitanas Nausėda is also expected to take part in the protests in that human chain. On August 23rd, 1989, millions had formed a human chain through 3 Baltic states of Lithuania, Latvia and Estonia to express their desire for independence from the Soviet Union. Now, ALEKSANDRA STOJANOVICH-GODFROID is a journalist based in the Russian capital, Moscow, and has been following Moscow's response to the unrest in Belarus. She says officials have been encouraging Lukashenko to negotiate.
Mr. Lavrov is saying that the way out is wide and broad, genuinely broad national dialogue, that Lukashenko should talk with the trade unions and that Moscow would be okay with whatever he agrees with the opposition. At the same time, he's suspecting this coordinational council of opposition was formed in a strange way, saying there is a lot of people there, they're actually anti-Russian. He went further, saying that TIKHANOVSKAYA, when she came abroad, was apparently under some pressure and started again doing political statements, supporting and calling for protests. And he also said there is a certain program of TIKHANOVSKAYA in which it is written in Belarusian, said that Belarus should go out of Eurasian Council, that they should go out of the Collective Security Treaty and of the Union State of Russia and Belarus, and instead go towards EU and eventually NATO. He even says that it said there that the Russian language should be pushed out on the account of Belarusian language, calling it a kind of artificial language. Now, this kind of rhetorics we heard heard before. We heard it in the case of Ukraine altogether, with the foreign factor, with the foreign interference, which is unacceptable, as Russia is pointing out, and saying that it is parts of opposition that want violence on the streets of Minsk and in Belarus, and they are calling for the bloodshed, and that it should be up to Belarusian people to decide what to do next.